when we decided to read the Old Testament in 2 years, starting on the 1st of January, I always knew, and I think we all always knew, that when we got to Leviticus, it was going to get hard. The Genesis is fun. Exodus has got loads of stuff going on. The second half starts to get a little bit more complicated. Then you come to Leviticus and you think, what on earth are we doing here? And even more so with what's going on at the moment, I think we might be thinking, do I really need to be getting into the book of Leviticus at this time of crisis? Well, let me encourage us to keep going, and let me just help us to see one or two things that may be helpful. Think about the book of Leviticus. It's all about things like whether you can be near one another and near God and draw near to him, ceremonial uncleanness, actually not so distant from the kinds of issues we are thinking about at the moment. Obviously slightly different, but in one sense the big message of Leviticus is that God is not self-isolating. God's great desire is to dwell among his people. But the problem is that his people's sin and their uncleanness means that he can't just dwell among his people, because they will be destroyed. He's holy. And if he comes down and dwells among them, they will die. And so what does he do then? Well, rather than expecting us just to solve the problem ourselves, he initiates offerings and offerings for sin and guilt, and the burnt offerings for burning up, representing the whole of the old life gone, grain offerings, remembering. And then this morning, if you read chapter 3, we saw the peace offering, or the fellowship offering as it's often called, where instead of normally in most of the sacrifices, the animal or the food that's presented is entirely burnt up, or sometimes the priests get to have it. But in the fellowship offering, God says, here's a sacrifice where you bring me an offering, and it's cooked on the altar, but then you get to eat it as part of what's going on. And chapter 3 starts to talk about that, and then in chapter 7 later he comes back to this, and it's clear that the worshipper gets to eat part of the peace offering. So what's all this showing us? Remember, all this stuff about sacrifices in the Old Testament is pointing forwards to Jesus. So it's like a scale model. It's a kind of slowing down. It's helping us to understand different aspects of what Jesus has done for us. And what all this reminds us is that the goal of Jesus' sacrifice for us is not simply that we can go free and get on with our lives because our sin has been paid for, but the goal is, if you like, to eat, that we get to eat with God, that we get to enjoy fellowship with him, and eating and sharing a meal is a very poignant sign of what that means. So today, faced with fear and chaos, it's easy for these things to feel a bit remote, and we kind of think, I want something that speaks to me right now. But this does speak to us, because it tells us God has drawn near to us. He's done what is needed for that to happen. He's initiated everything that has to happen for that. So we can not just go free and get on with our lives by ourselves, but no, we can be in union with him through Jesus, and we can enjoy the fellowship of knowing him. We can be at peace with him, and that's what the peace and the fellowship offering points forwards to. So the question then is that something that we are taking advantage of in the midst of the fear and the chaos of our days at the moment? We have a Saviour who's come into the world to make us right with God. He's drawn near to us. He's not far and distant waiting for us to work our way up to him. He has come down here. And so, as the book of Hebrews encourages us, let's draw near to him, and let's be living our lives conscious that he loves to hear us pray through his son Jesus. He loves for us to be in relationship with him, and so we can keep doing that today and every day.